I woke up to the sound of grinding metal and the smell of hot asphalt. That's never a good sign when your bedroom window overlooks your own private road. My name's Xander Trout, and I own the only house on the short gravel lane that runs up to my property legally and officially.
I don't think the height is a problem.
Emphasis on private road.
My agility.
So you can imagine my confusion when I looked outside and saw 3 guys in reflective vests installing bright yellow speed bumps. Not little ones either, these were the back-breaking kind that'll rattle your teeth loose at 5 miles per hour. I threw on a hoodie and boots and marched straight down my driveway. "Hey, who authorized this?" I shouted over the noise. One of the workers looked up, mildly annoyed. "We got the work order from the Willow Heights HOA," he said, tapping a clipboard. "Says right here speed control installation on Community Road." "This isn't a community road," I snapped. "This is my road, it's on my deed," he shrugged. "Take it up with whoever signed the order, we just do the job." I didn't need to ask who signed it. Because as I turned, I saw her standing at the edge of the cul-de-sac, arms crossed like she was posing for a brochure titled How to Ruin Your Neighbor's Day. Vanessa Brandt, HOA president, professional busybody, and full-time pain in the neck. "Vanessa," I barked.
Wow, guys, this is such a
She walked over like she owned the pavement under her kitten heels.
So beautiful.
"Xander, we've had multiple complaints about speeding near your property. The board voted to install speed bumps to protect the children." "What children?" I asked. "I don't have kids, and no one under 12 even lives on this side of the street." "Well, Liam rides his scooter nearby," she said, tossing her blonde bob like that explained everything. "And frankly, your road encourages reckless driving. We're doing what's best for the community."
Drinking a beer while watching this?
"Again," I said slowly, "this road is not part of the community, it's private. It's on my land, you can't touch it." She smiled like she was talking to a toddler.
But I truly don't understand.
Our legal committee determined that your road is adjacent to HOA property, which makes it eligible for common sense safety improvements.
That might help
Your legal committee is your yoga instructor and your cousin Todd, I growled.
I'm actually at the moment not playing anything.
"You're trespassing." Vanessa turned and strutted off before I could say another word. The crew kept working. I couldn't stop them without risking a scene I'd end up paying for, so I did the next best thing. I started documenting everything. Photos, videos,
playing music, but
timestamps.
It's noise canceling, so at least
I even pulled up my property survey and deed and left a call with my lawyer. By sundown, there were 3 massive speed bumps drilled into my gravel road, which now looked like it had been chewed up by a drunken construction crew. My own tires kicked up dust and rocks every time I drove over them. That night, I poured myself a drink and started drafting the invoice. Road damage, unauthorized construction, legal fees, and restoration costs.
Toads did not hurt my feelings.
It added up fast, $10,000 even, and I wasn't just sending them a bill. I was preparing for war.
I was listening to movie soundtracks.
HOA story, HOA stories, Homeowners Association stories. I didn't sleep long that night. Sometime around 4 in the morning, headlights bounced across my ceiling as another car crawled over the new terrain they'd carved into my driveway. The noise was different now, louder, sharper. It wasn't just gravel crunching anymore. It was the sound of a road being mistreated. By 7, I was back outside in work boots, clipboard in hand, measuring the width and height of each bump while muttering numbers under my breath. I needed every detail logged before I sent the invoice.
They kind of pop out.
Just as I was photographing a fresh crack that had formed along the edge of the middle hump, a voice called out from the sidewalk. "Morning, Mr. Trout. You building a launch ramp or something?" It was Marcus, the mail carrier. He always had a joke ready, but today he looked genuinely confused. "Speed bumps," I said, "installed yesterday without my permission." He leaned over the first bump, whistling low. "These aren't prefab either. Looks like they poured these from scratch. That's serious equipment." I nodded. "And serious damage, that section over there."
You guys could choose. Either we go
"That
back
used to be flat."
lessons,
Marcus straightened up, pulling his satchel higher on his shoulder. "You
park.
filing a claim?" "Already drafted. And if they think they can ignore it, they're in for a surprise." He gave me a knowing look. "Good. We've had our own spats with Willow Heights over mailbox placement." They tried to tell us we had to relocate all the boxes to a centralized hub halfway down the street.
Nah,
Got the postmaster involved. Didn't
like
end well
for
them.
wrong
That got a
website.
chuckle out of me.
There is like a pretty
Appreciate the
lake back
intel.
there,
Marcus tipped his
but
cap and
like
continued
I said,
up the
that
street.
is also fenced off. So besides
I went
that,
back
there's not much in
inside
that
and fired off
direction.
the invoice with
So we can just
attached
go back to the cherry
documentation to
blossoms.
the HOA's official email and copied the
drink water,
city
though.
zoning office for good measure. I didn't expect a response right away, but I got one 4
Honestly,
hours
the
later.
Game of Thrones soundtrack was so
A terse
fucking
email
peak.
from
That
Todd
shit was
Renner,
good.
the HOA's so-called legal chair, full of vague references
Cherry
to
blossoms
community
it is.
easement allowances and emergency safety measures, followed by a flat
There's like some
refusal
other
to pay
spots
anything.
you can watch the cherry blossoms.
He
here
closed with a
installed.
line that made me pause
There's, like,
and reread
Numsum
twice.
Tower.
All
But
further
Numsum Tower is, like, a
communications should go
mountain,
through
right?
our firm,
And,
Penmore and
it's very
Lafley.
beautiful. If you're ever in Seoul, I
That
do
was
really
new.
recommend it.
They'd never used
basically a
outside
long
counsel
path
before.
that kinda
Either
goes
they were
up to the
bluffing or they
viewpoint.
knew they'd messed up and were trying
It's
to
a bit of
cover
a
their
hike,
tracks
but it's
fast.
not that bad. Like I was able to do it.
I called
which
my
honestly says
attorney,
a lot.
Evelyn Cho. She picked up on the
but
second
I cannot
ring.
do that while streaming
Already saw the
because
photos, she
it is
said.
quite steep.
You've got a strong case.
And
I
to
filed a
talk
preliminary
constantly,
notice
I
with
will
the
be out of
county.
breath the whole time. So
They'll want to
But
see
it's
the
really, really
easement
cool.
details,
Like, it's a nice
but based
path
on
when
your
the
deed and the land
cherry
survey,
blossoms are
this isn't even a gray area.
blooming.
I figured as much, I said. But
Just
now
not
they're
ideal
claiming they
for
had safety
streaming because
authority
it
and
is
they're
quite
lawyering
steep.
up. That's a
See,
bluff.
you can already hear
If
me
they
because
had
I'm talking too
authority,
much
they'd
while
have
I'm trying to
filed a
walk, which I
permit.
do all the time.
I checked
And I
no
don't
permit
breathe properly,
application,
and then I get out of
no
breath.
notification to the city, and no
It's gonna be worse than that
environmental
if I have to,
impact
like,
assessment for the
walk
poured concrete.
Up a mountain.
That makes it unauthorized construction
The
on
game part
private
is nice.
property,
I think I've only ever
which
done that
is
once.
criminal trespass.
Because it's kind of
And
like
depending on how they handled
pricey for
waste
local
disposal from the
prices.
job, possibly a
there are
violation of
buses that
state
go up to the
environmental
mountain,
codes. That was
which are
more
just,
than I
like,
expected.
public transportation
I thanked
cost
her and hung
prices,
up,
so it's like
feeling the
2001.
first real surge of
So I
momentum
used to
since
always
this
just
mess
do that. I used to
started.
just get the bus up to
The next
mountain.
day, I filed a formal
But the
complaint
Game Over
with
is
the
like the
city's
most
code
aesthetic. It's just the
enforcement
most
office.
expensive, too.
I included photos, timestamps, and the email trail. I also dropped off a copy of my deed and a notarized statement confirming that the road in question
The wait
was under
can
my
be
sole
pretty bad.
ownership
Yeah, I think when
and
I
had
went,
no
I got pretty
shared
lucky. It
access
wasn't
agreements
that
with the
bad.
HOA. 3 days later,
But it can
a
be
city inspector
from
named
experience, from,
Ron
like,
Blakely
memory.
showed up unannounced. He looked like he'd been
I would
doing
like to
this
take you
job
guys
since
there,
the
though,
Carter
but like I said, I
administration
just don't
and had the
know.
clipboard to prove it.
We would just have to take
Mr.
the
Troot,
bus.
he asked,
And it could
stepping
get
out
super
of his
crowded
truck.
on that bus, so I would
I'm
feel
here
kind
about
of
the
like I might not even be able
unauthorized
to hold, like, the
construction.
camera because it's like
I led him down
you're
the road,
back to back,
pointing out
basically.
each speed bump and the sections where
But
runoff
I
had
remember
already started
a friend of
eroding
mine,
the
she
edges.
streamed, I think,
He
on
took
Mom's Son
notes,
once, and she said
measured
she had a really
the
bad
incline
connection there,
angles, and
so
even scraped a sample of
I'm
the
kind of
concrete
scared that I
mix
do the
into a
same. Like I
plastic
go
bag.
all the way up there
Did
just
they
to have
pour
bad
this on
connection.
site? He asked. They brought
that
in a
would kinda
mobile
suck.
mixer, no trucks, just
Put all
barrels
the
and a
effort
generator,
and, like,
he grunted.
there is no climax. It's
That's a
just
violation
like,
right
oops,
there.
actually, guys,
No
doesn't work.
containment
Never
barriers,
mind.
no drainage plan. And this one here, he tapped the
When
side of the
last time I was
tallest
here,
bump
he
with his
was out of
boot,
the door.
exceeds the legal height limit for
This is no,
residential
like, a
traffic
Korean.
zones.
What does that have to do with it?
What does that mean?
Why is the
It
weight
means
bad
someone's
because
getting
somebody doesn't
fined.
know Korean?
And if this was done without a permit, the city's going to want it removed. At their expense. That night, I received an anonymous
Alright, let's go
envelope
sit down
shoved
for a
through
bit.
my
I'm
mail
getting a
slot.
bit faint
No return
headed,
address, no
unfortunately.
stamps. Inside was a folded HOA meeting transcript clearly
Annoying
not meant
myself
for
way too
public
much,
circulation. It was a printed Zoom call log, and near the bottom, I found what I
back
was
here.
looking for.
There they are. Sorry.
Vanessa,
we were walking to
we
them.
can't
There
wait
was
for
no cherry
permits.
blossoms earlier.
The Troot property is setting a bad precedent. If
Actually
we
got
don't
my
show we have
standards, so
control
I'm not
over
holding
adjacent
anymore.
areas, others will start making exceptions too. Todd, we'll call it a safety measure. As long as no one files a
Because I
report,
knew
we can
you
say it
could
was
rent the bus.
urgent.
I could go
Vanessa.
visit and a lot cheaper.
If he complains,
Yeah,
we'll
but
say
I
it's a
think I
community
would
decision.
stay- if
That was
if
it.
you have the money
The
to
smoking
take
gun.
the-
They'd admitted to
If you have the
bypassing
money,
city
just take the cable
protocol
car.
because
It's
they
a
were
lot more
worried
fun
about losing influence, not
and a
safety.
lot more like aesthetic, you know.
I brought
so.
the transcript to Evelyn the next morning. She read it once, then again,
I mean,
slower
they
the
are
second
quite-
time.
I mean, it's very
This is
pale pink.
evidence
They're
of
not, like,
premeditated
bright pink,
fraud, she said.
but they are
They
pink.
knew they were acting outside their authority and moved forward anyway. That opens them up to punitive damages. Can we press charges? We'll start with a cease and desist order and a civil suit. But if you're
Like
serious,
for me,
I'll
I've been to
forward
Namsan
this
so
to the
many
district
times,
attorney's
like every single
office.
time when I have friends visit.
They can determine
because
if
I've
it
seen
meets
it
the
so many
threshold for
times,
criminal
it's just not very
misconduct.
worth it to go
I'm
with,
serious.
like,
She
the gate
nodded.
car every single time.
Then I'll draft the paperwork
So I
today.
don't do it.
By
but
the end of
I
the
would
week,
say if you
the
have
HOA
money to just do
received a
it that way.
cease
It's,
and
like, way more
desist
fun
letter
than a
served
bus,
by a
honestly.
deputy from the sheriff's department. Vanessa was spotted standing in her driveway, visibly shaken as the officer handed her the envelope. But the real blow came 2 days later,
background
when
is a
code
little bit
enforcement
better.
issued an official removal order. The HOA had 10 business days to demolish the speed bumps and restore the
So it's
road to
already
its original
gone
condition, or face daily
I think so. I
fines
think
of up
it's
to
gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna
$500.
rain, actually.
I stood at the edge
If
of
it's
my
not gonna
property that
rain, they should
afternoon,
stick for, like, a
watching
few
the
more days,
neighborhood
but if it's
buzz
gonna
with
rain,
whispers.
They're gonna be
A few
gone.
residents who had previously kept their heads
friend
down
on
now
YouTube?
began asking questions. One even
I
approached me,
might have
Sarah,
put a
who lived
filter
2
over
lots
YouTube
over.
from last year.
We didn't vote on any of this,
like
she
up
said
the contrast,
quietly.
or like up the
Vanessa told us the board approved it unanimously,
saturation.
but no one I've talked to even knew it was happening. She made the decision herself, I told her, and now she's dragging the whole HOA down with her. Sarah frowned. We're going to call an emergency board meeting. There's talk of a vote to remove her. Let me know when that happens, I said.
There were quite
I'll bring
a
the
lot of cherry
popcorn.
blossoms. Like, we even
The
had,
following morning,
like,
construction
special, like, they're
crews
called, like,
returned,
green
but this
cherry
time
blossoms or something,
under the
and they, like,
watchful
bloomed
eye
in
of
the
a city
wintertime
inspector.
in front of my school,
They spent
which
the
was really
entire
cool.
day jackhammering the speed bumps out, hauling chunks of concrete away and trying to smooth over the gouged gravel.
I mean, I wouldn't carry it as a
I made sure to
souvenir
film
because
every
they
second.
just-
By sunset, the
they're-
road
I mean,
was
you can,
mine
like, maybe
again,
press
still
them in
scarred
between,
but
like,
mine,
paper
and the $10,000
preserve them.
invoice that
But
was now
besides
just the
that,
down payment.
They're gonna fade.
3 days after the removal order was enforced, I got a call from Evelyn while I was reseeding the
Like, you could do,
torn-up
like,
shoulder of the
flower
driveway.
petal preserving,
She didn't
where you, like,
usually
put
waste
it in a
time
book.
on small talk.
You could try that, but
They've
like any other way, they're
escalated,
just gonna
she said.
turn brown.
Willow Heights HOA
they're not
just
gonna stay
filed a
pretty.
counterclaim. For what? I asked, wiping sweat from my brow. They're alleging that your road created a nuisance condition that endangered the neighborhood. They're trying to frame your private drive as a liability to the
But
community.
they're pretty nice.
It's flimsy, but it's enough to stall the
And it
civil
beats, like,
suit.
sitting, I guess,
I
at the
dropped the
desk,
rake.
right? Like,
They're
sitting at the
trying to
desk,
turn their mistake into my
streaming
fault.
sometimes,
They're grasping,
so-
she said. But it tells me something else, too. They're scared. I paced to the edge of the
One fell
gravel,
on my head.
staring down the slope where the speed bumps had once been. What's our move? I'm requesting an
Prosecutor.
evidentiary hearing. We'll need more than pictures now, we need testimony.
Excuse me.
If we can show they acted with intent to deceive,
What's
I
the
can
word?
fast-track this to a judge.
Over
The next
there?
48 hours
That's
were a
just the
blur.
sunlight.
I reached out to neighbors who'd been
Sunlight,
on the
it's not
fence.
orange.
Some were hesitant,
Oh
but
my
once
God.
I mentioned the city had already issued violations, more began opening up.
The sun is like going down.
One of them,
up there.
a retired
it
engineer
just
named
shows
Neil who lived
upward.
across the street, had
The
kept
sun is,
detailed
like,
logs of
setting
HOA
over there.
meetings for years, complete with audio recordings. All perfectly legal under our state's single-party consent laws.
Yeah, every time I'm in
When Neil
Korea, I
offered up a
swear,
USB drive with over a dozen meetings,
miss
Evelyn called in a
the
paralegal
Dutch,
to
like,
start combing
weather.
through them.
As in, like,
The
airplanes
bombshell
and, like,
came
it
from a recording
sucks,
dated
honestly,
6
to have, like,
weeks
bad
before
air pollution
construction
here.
started. Vanessa's voice came through faint but clear. If we treat that road like it's
And I
part of the
always
community,
notice that
we
when
can
I've
eventually
been, like,
push for a
for
property
example,
line
go back
review.
home where we have good
The board can
air
claim
air
maintenance
pollution,
responsibility and
we have,
fold
like,
it
good
into
air
our
quality, and then I
jurisdiction.
come back to Korea,
Another
it's
voice,
always, like, I
possibly
always have to
Todd,
go through, like, a
responded,
transitional
but it's
period
not
where I'm, like,
ours.
not used to it
We'll make it
anymore.
ours, she said.
Okay, let's
That
go,
wasn't
'cause I
just
think it's gonna be really
overreach.
pretty with the
That
sun
was
going
attempted
down.
property annexation. Evelyn took the recording straight to the district attorney's office. The DA's staff didn't need long to act. 2 days later, a subpoena landed on the HOA's doorstep. The charge,
raining.
attempted fraudulent misappropriation of private property. The morning after,
go.
2 plainclothes investigators from the county's white-collar crimes division arrived at the HOA
The
office.
thing is, if there's, like,
Vanessa wasn't there.
the sun is pretty high, and there's
She'd
like,
left
kinda,
town
like,
the night
hills, though.
before,
Or maybe we get lucky
according
and
to a
it's really
neighbor
pretty.
who saw her car pulling out with luggage strapped to the
Surviving
roof.
your parents'
Not that it
backyard?
mattered.
I would
The
think so,
HOA's board was
probably.
still liable as an entity. And the paper trail
they
we'd built
survived Korean
emails,
weather.
service
Korean weather is
invoices, the private
very
transcript,
harsh.
and
Like,
now
they
the
have very
recordings was
harsh
ironclad.
summers, very harsh
At the next
winters.
public hearing, Evelyn and I sat in the front row.
Milder, so I think it should be
The courtroom wasn't packed,
fine.
but several residents from Willow Heights sat behind us, whispering quietly as the judge entered.
On
On the other side, Todd sat at the defense table alone, pale and visibly sweating through his collar. His attorney leaned in and whispered something that made him sink lower in his chair. The judge called the case and asked for initial statements. Evelyn stood, calm and deliberate. Your Honor, what began as a case of unapproved construction quickly revealed a deeper pattern of misconduct. The defendant's organization not only trespassed and damaged private property, but attempted to obscure legal boundaries in order to claim ownership over something they knew was beyond their authority. She paused, letting the weight of it settle. We have recordings, documents, and sworn testimony that show clear intent to defraud. The judge nodded slowly. Proceed. When Todd's attorney stood, he tried to pivot, claiming the HOA acted in community interest. But when Evelyn played the audio clip of Vanessa talking about folding my property into their jurisdiction, the judge held up a hand. That's enough. He turned to the clerk.
You guys are lower.
Schedule a full evidentiary hearing. I want this investigated thoroughly.
So this is
After court adjourned, I walked out to the parking lot and found Neil waiting beside his truck. They're done, he said, arms folded. Maybe not all of them, I said, but the rot's exposed now. He nodded once. People are angry. Some of us are ready to start pushing for a full recall. That evening, an emergency meeting notice went out to all Willow Heights residents. It wasn't from the HOA. It was from a coalition of homeowners calling for a vote to dissolve the current board entirely. I wasn't technically part of the HOA, but I was invited anyway. When I showed up at the community center, the room was packed. Folding chairs filled every corner. People stood along the walls. And at the front, a printed transcript of Vanessa's recording sat taped to a whiteboard under the words, "This is who represents you." A middle-aged woman I recognized from a few blocks over stood and addressed the crowd. We've been told this board has our best interests at heart. But they tried to steal a neighbor's land. They lied about votes, and they've cost all of us money that could have gone to real improvements. Murmurs of agreement echoed across the room. We deserve better. A vote was held on the spot. No one from the board showed up to defend themselves. Every seat was declared vacant. Within a week, a temporary committee took over. They hired an independent auditor who revealed something even more damning. The HOA had diverted funds to pay for the speed bump construction from a reserve account meant for sidewalk repairs. That wasn't just unethical, it violated state HOA regulations. The final blow came when the DA filed formal charges against Vanessa for willful misappropriation of funds and property fraud. She was arrested in a neighboring county after being stopped for a broken taillight.
It's all right. Sometimes they're being nice.
Two of the former board members were subpoenaed shortly after, including Todd. Meanwhile, Evelyn filed a civil suit for damages on my behalf. This time, there was no counterclaim, no stalling. The new committee didn't even contest it. They settled the day before trial for the full amount. $10,000 for road damage, plus an additional $5,000 for legal costs and restoration efforts. When the check arrived, it came with a formal letter of apology signed by the interim president. I deposited it the same day and used part of it to have the road professionally resurfaced. The gravel was replaced with compacted stone and a proper drainage trench. It looked better than it ever had. A month later, I threw a small cookout for the neighbors who backed me. Neil came by with a six-pack. Sarah brought potato salad. Even Marcus, our mail carrier, stopped in for a burger. As the sun dipped below the trees, Neil lifted his beer in my direction. Can't believe you took down the whole board with a driveway dispute. I raised mine in return. They should have left it alone. From that day forward, Willow Heights operated under a new charter, one that emphasized transparency, resident voting rights, and clear boundaries literally and legally. And my road, not a single bump in sight. The day after the settlement check cleared, I got a call from Officer Stroud, one of the detectives assigned to the white-collar division.
Because I was
He
thinking to
asked
myself,
if I'd be willing to come down to the station to
what
answer a
happens
few
to those
follow-up
pictures?
questions.
Like, who do you send this
It wasn't
to?
unexpected,
Do you just
but
send
I
it
could
to
tell
your-
by the
to your-
tone
to
in
your
his
family,
voice
like,
that
look,
something
guys,
new had
white girl.
surfaced.
Like, what?
I met him at his office that afternoon. The
You're in
walls
Dutch
were lined
wormhole.
with case
Oh,
files
goodness.
and a corkboard with flowcharts and
Niet
tagged
in
photos.
Nederlands.
Stroud was the kind of guy who
Please.
didn't speak unless he had something nailed down.
This is my kid's
He
English
motioned for me to
teacher,
sit
definitely,
and slid a thin file across the desk.
Take a picture.
We finished combing through the HOA's financial records, he said.
Quite a lot.
Thanks to the forensic accountant, your attorney put us in touch
Like, when I
with.
was at Disneyland, I had a lot
Turns
of
out
girls
the
ask to
speed
take
bumps
pictures
weren't
with
the
me.
only thing they
And
paid
they
for
were
with
very
that
sweet
reserve
about it.
fund.
They called me like
I opened the
pretty and
folder
stuff, but it
and
was still
scanned
a
the
bit
ledger
weird.
printouts.
It feels weird because, like, obviously
There
you're
were
not a
entries for
celebrity.
landscaping
You're
services
just
that
a
had never
normal
been
person,
performed,
so it feels very
contractor
odd, I'm not
fees
gonna
billed
lie
to
to you.
non-existent companies, and payments made to a Shell LLC registered under a
English teacher.
familiar name.
That actually, it does happen a lot.
Penmore and
Like, I used
Laughley,
to,
I
with my
said,
old friend
pointing
group
to
who
a
were, like,
disbursement.
basically all white
Yep,
girls.
Stroud
we
replied.
would go picnicking a lot in the
Only
near
there's
the-
no
near
law
the
firm
river.
by that name.
And I
It's a
swear to God,
fake
almost
business
every single
license
time we did
registered
that,
in
there was
Nevada
just, like,
and
this
tied to a
random
P.O.
Korean kid
box.
that was, like,
The registered
awkwardly
agent,
shuffle over to
Todd
us,
Renner.
and,
I
like,
leaned back
looked
in the
like he was
chair.
just
So the
not
fake law
happy.
firm that sent me
And
the
then you saw, like,
email
the
wasn't
parents
just
in
a
the
bluff,
background,
it was
like,
part of their laundering.
And then
Exactly.
he would, like, come over to us and
They
be like,
created the illusion of
"Hello,
legal
my
action to
name is
intimidate you
Jihan.
while
I
funneling
am 9
HOA
years
funds
old,
into a personal
and I
slush
am
account.
practicing
We've got
English."
records
And
of
we would
over
have to, like, just talk to
$30,000
this random kid. I
misappropriated
mean, it
over
was
the
cute, but
last
it was
year
just like-
alone. You have enough to charge
Okay.
them. We already did, he said. The DA filed charges
Must have
against
ended.
Todd yesterday wire
Yes.
fraud, embezzlement, and impersonation of legal counsel.
I do feel
A
like
warrant
it's
was
kinda like
issued
that,
this
though.
morning.
It
He's
is
in
kinda like
custody.
that. So
I let out a
somewhere
breath
out
I hadn't
there,
realized
like,
I was holding.
random people's
There's
phones
more, Stroud
where they were
continued.
just like freakishly
We traced a
weird
contractor
girl. Let's take
payment from the
pictures.
speed bump
And I'm
job
just there like,
to a company that
"Thank you."
doesn't hold a valid contractor's license. The owner,
I wouldn't
a
say,
guy
like,
named
amazing
Brent
everything,
Lacey,
to be honest
is
with
on
you.
probation for prior
I
permit
think I could've been a lot
violations.
better had I studied
He was paid in
more.
cash through a third party, another
But
shell company set up by Vanessa.
Sadly, I was.
She used
I
an
was really busy
unlicensed
with
contractor.
work, as
Worse,
an English
she knew
teacher
his
the last 2
license
years
was
that I
revoked.
working here. So it was
We
like a
found
full-time job that I
emails where she
had,
instructed him to
and
keep it
I wasn't allowed to
quiet and
speak
use
Korean at
informal
work,
labor.
like, at all. They would
We're
actually get
charging
mad
her
if you
with
spoke Korean.
conspiracy to commit
So
fraud,
besides
misuse
that, I
of
didn't have, like, a
community
lot of
funds,
energy to
and
study,
unlawful
to be honest with
contracting.
you. And most of my
She's got a
friends
court
who
date
are-
next
some of them
month.
are Korean,
I
they spoke
stood,
always
trying to
English
process
really
it
well,
all.
So it was like.
So
I
what
don't think I
happens to
always
the
had, like,
HOA
I was always in a
now?
bubble
Stroud
where
closed the
necessity
file.
to speak Korean was
With most of the
super
board
high.
either under
So because of
indictment
that,
or
my Korean is
dissolved,
sadly
the
not
interim
best,
committee
which
is
I'm kinda
petitioning for
sometimes sad
state
about, but
oversight.
At the same time, I'm like,
It'll take
just didn't have
time,
the
but this
energy
neighborhood's
for it,
going to be under a microscope for a while. That evening, I got a knock on the door. It was Sarah, holding a manila envelope and looking more
yeah.
resolved than I'd ever seen her.
I have like
We just
I've
finished
had
the
some time
transition
for
vote,
men,
she
and it
said.
sounds like people are gonna be like, "You're
The
sexist."
interim
I don't give a
committee's
fuck,
stepping
whatever.
aside.
I've
We
had a few
elected a
times
new
where men
board,
ask me for
5
pictures, and I'm
members,
like,
all
yeah,
residents
no.
with no
I'm like,
ties to the
spray
old
water on her.
guard.
I'm like, get away from me.
Congratulations,
Get away from me.
I said, opening the
If it's a
screen
woman,
door.
I'm like,
We also voted to
vibe
amend the
check, but a lot of
charter,
times
she
they're nice, so I'm
continued.
like, okay, I guess.
The new bylaws prohibit any action involving private property unless unanimously approved by the board and with documented consent
Biggest
from the
squash I've ever
affected
seen.
homeowner.
It's a weird looking dog.
Good, I said. That should stop any future power
What is
grabs.
this proportion?
She handed me
Its
the
head is, like,
envelope.
the size of its body.
Inside was a
Music
notarized
way,
statement
big
formally
board.
recognizing that my road was outside the jurisdiction of
should be
Willow
a-
Heights HOA and would remain so permanently. It was signed by every new board member. Consider it a
Why
peace
actually are they
offering,
called
she
cherry
said.
blossoms?
And a thank you.
They don't produce
I thanked
cherries.
her and watched her walk back down the hill toward her home. For the first time in months, the street felt calm. No construction noise,
look at the
no
dogs that are
blinds
looking at
twitching.
you.
Just quiet over the next few weeks.
You have
Things
to be
settled
strong.
into a new
like,
rhythm.
People don't realize I have to be.
The road restoration held up beautifully,
to, like-
and the new surface reduced
I was
runoff
with
into
my
the
friend
adjacent
yesterday, we were,
yards.
like, at the park,
A few
right? She was
residents
like,
even
"You get
asked if the
bothered by
contractor
people,
I
like,
used
looking
could be
at you the
hired
whole
to
time?"
fix
And I
other
was like,
parts of
I
the
mean, I kinda
neighborhood.
got used to it. She was
I
like,
passed
"People
along the
look at
number
you
with
long."
one
I was like,
condition:
yeah.
get permits and
I
get
mean,
it
I
in
don't mind the
writing.
looking. That's fine with me. For me,
Evelyn wrapped up the
thing
last
I
of
get
the
bothered
civil
by is the
filings.
pointing, like,
We didn't
pointing
pursue
and, like,
additional
obvious being
damages
rude. I don't
beyond
like
the
that.
settlement the new board was trying to rebuild. and I wasn't interested in
Case
bleeding
I'll
them
probably
dry.
Like what?
Still, The judge imposed a
gross stuff.
restitution order on Vanessa and Todd if and when
mean,
they were
yeah, I
convicted.
can.
They'd be paying back every penny they stole.
Pointing is insane. No, they do that a lot.
The day
They do that a
Todd's
lot, and I
trial
get
began,
really
local
agitated
news
by it.
vans showed up outside the
Because
courthouse.
I don't get it. Like they just.
The headline
for
on
some
the
reason
evening
think I don't
broadcast said it
see
all.
them,
HOA
which is
board
also
accused of
insane. It's just- they're just
embezzlement,
rude.
fraud,
I
and
really hate
scheme
that.
to
Like, I
seize
really hate
private
that.
property. Vanessa's mugshot followed, looking a far cry from the
Should we go for a
confident
little bit
woman
again?
who once told me my road was part
the
of the
lights
community.
are
They
gone.
both pled not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Between the emails, fake contractor payments,
first
and
time you
shell
went here, you were in
firms,
trouble.
the
I'm
prosecution
not
had a
bothered. Somebody
timeline that
asked. I'm
spanned
not
nearly
bothered about
18
staring.
months.
Like, it's fine. It's just the
Testimonies
pointing I
from
get really
residents,
annoyed
former
by.
board members,
But I
and
think
even the
anybody would. Like, if
unlicensed
you were walking
contractor
around,
sealed it.
And I'm not
It took the
talking,
jury
like, with
less
a
than
gimbal,
2 hours.
Like, obviously streaming and stuff. I'm
Todd
talking,
was
like,
sentenced to 6
just-
years with no
just
eligibility for
walking
parole
around by yourself,
until year
and people were
4.
constantly pointing at you. You would also
Vanessa
get annoyed.
received 4.5, plus mandatory restitution, and a 10-year ban from serving on any HOA or nonprofit board.
You're up close, actually.
The judge called her actions an egregious abuse of neighborly trust and civic responsibility. Back in Willow Heights, the new board held their first open meeting in the community park rather than the
here. This is
clubhouse
so cute.
symbolic, they said, of their commitment to
Ever see the
transparency.
Freehawk sign at a South
Every
University?
resident was invited.
No. I
No
don't get
closed
that.
door votes,
I've seen that
no
before at
procedural trickery.
conventions.
Marcus, the mail carrier,
And I never
even showed
understood
up during
it.
his
Like, do
break
people
and
go
gave
up
a
to these
short
people and,
speech
like,
about
hug
how
them?
peaceful the route
Why
had
would you
become.
hug a stranger?
At the
I've
end of the
never understood
meeting,
that.
Neil stood up
Maybe it's because
and
I'm just
proposed
not a
renaming the
hugger
road that
to
led to my
begin with,
property.
but-
The idea got some laughs, but it passed unanimously. They named it Trout Lane. The city approved the signage a few weeks later. It wasn't an official street change, just a posted nameplate at the base of the drive, mounted on a cedar post next to the newly planted dogwood tree. Every time I pulled in, I saw it there. A small reminder of how far things had come. From a rogue speed bump to a full-blown criminal trial, it had been a long haul. But in the end, the truth held. The community rallied. And the people who tried to twist the rules for power and profit got exactly what they deserved. Justice wasn't always fast. But when it came, it hit harder than a truckload of concrete.